Karen chased black kids from the park. Police made her leave. Chapter 1. A peaceful afternoon. Until it wasn't. Maplewood Park in the heart of Fairview was a favorite gathering place for kids on summer afternoons. Laughter echoed across the lush green lawns and birds chirped in the old oaks. It seemed like a peaceful place where kids, regardless of color, were just kids. But not everyone saw it that way. Karen Whitmore stood at a distance, her arms crossed over her chest, her cold eyes fixed on the playground. At 52, Karen was the typical person in the neighborhood who many described as arrogant, judgmental, and unapproachable. With her tightly curled platinum blonde hair and unwrinkled khakis, she felt a responsibility to keep order in public even when no one asked her to. Karen's eyes locked on a group of children playing on the swings, 3 black kids about 8 or 10 years old laughing with pure joy. "Unacceptable," Karen muttered. She strode toward the playground, her heels pounding the pavement like a drum. "Hey, what are you doing here?" Karen's voice rang out harsh. The children turned confused. The youngest boy, Malik, clutched the swing ropes for protection. "We're just playing," Malik replied, his voice light as air. "This is no place for you." "Go away," Karen shouted, causing the people around her to turn to look. The laughter died away. A heavy silence fell over the playground. Chapter 2. First Response. A young mother, Alicia Carter, who had been reading nearby, witnessed the whole thing. She slammed the novel shut and stood up. "Excuse me, what are you doing?" Alicia asked, her voice calm but heavy. Karen spun around. "I keep this park safe," she said, emphasizing the word "keep safe" as if it were a sacred duty. "They're just playing," Alicia said calmly. "No one has the right to kick them out of here because of the color of their skin." Karen waved her hand. "I know this kind of thing. These kids are disruptive. I've seen them from afar." "A blatant accusation without any evidence," Alicia replied, her heart pounding. Around her, other parents began to gather. Some were whispering, some were on their phones recording the scene. Karen, feeling herself surrounded, became even louder. "I'm calling the police. I know my rights." Another father, Marcus Bennett, stepped forward. "Good, go ahead. We'll call the police too. Let them see who's causing trouble here." Chapter 3. The police arrives. The explosion. Shortly after sirens blared, a police car pulled up next to the playground. 2 officers got out, Officer Ramirez, a Latino, and Officer Daniels, a middle-aged white man. Karen rushed over, pointing at the kids. "Their officers have to do something. They're ruining this place." Officer Ramirez calmly asked, "Do you have any proof?" Karen stumbled. I saw them climbing the equipment improperly." The 2 officers looked at each other, their eyes filled with suspicion. Meanwhile, some parents showed the officers the video they had just recorded. The scene was clear. The kids were just playing completely harmless until Karen came running up and started yelling. Officer Daniels turned to Karen, his voice cold. "You're disturbing and causing a disturbance in a public place. You know that." Karen blushed. I just want this park to be clean." "Cleanliness does not mean racism," Officer Ramirez said bluntly. "We're asking you to leave the park immediately," Daniels added. "Otherwise, we'll have to take legal action." A round of applause erupted from the crowd. Malik and his friends held hands, eyes hopeful. Karen, embarrassed and ashamed, backed away. She glanced around. Every phone was pointed at her, recording every moment of this humiliation. She had no choice but to turn and walk away, a bitter look on her face. Chapter 4. Community outrage. That night, the video of the incident spread like wildfire on local social media. The hashtag #LetKidsPlay began trending across Facebook and Twitter. Alicia's first post read, "No one should be kicked off the playground because of the color of their skin. No one Maplewood saw the true face of prejudice today." The post received more than 10,000 shares in just a few hours. Discussions erupted across community forums. Some expressed shock and anger. Some defended Karen, saying she was just concerned about safety. But most called it what it was, overt racism. Local media outlets got involved too. A young reporter named Jasmine Nguyen even ran a special story titled, "Kicked Out of Childhood When Bias Crushes Laughter." Karen became the center of criticism for the entire town. Chapter 5. The beginning of a wave of change. 3 days later, in Maplewood Park itself, hundreds of people gathered for a peaceful march organized by Alicia and Marcus. Signs were held high. "Blacks are children too. The park belongs to all of us. No more silence for prejudice." Malik, standing next to his mother, squeezed his little sister's hand. His eyes sparkled with hope for the first time since that day. Alicia stepped onto the makeshift wooden stage, her voice booming through the loudspeaker. We are not here today for revenge. We are here to ask for one simple thing. Respect for the right to exist, to play, to live freely, not to be judged by the color of your skin. Applause echoed throughout the park. In the distance, Karen stood behind the trees watching the crowd. Part of her, for the first time in a long time, felt a pang, not anger but shame. Chapter 5. The beginning of a wave of change. 3 days later in Maplewood Park itself, hundreds of people gathered for a peaceful march, organized by Alicia and Marcus. Signs were held high. Blacks are children too. The park belongs to all of us. No more silence for prejudice. Malik, standing next to his mother, squeezed his little sister's hand. His eyes sparkled with hope for the first time since that day. Alicia stepped onto the makeshift wooden stage, her voice booming through the loudspeaker. We are not here today for revenge. We are here to ask for one simple thing. Respect for the right to exist, to play, to live freely, not to be judged by the color of your skin. Applause echoed throughout the park. In the distance, Karen stood behind the trees watching the crowd. Part of her, for the first time in a long time, felt a pang. Not anger, but shame. Chapter 6. The isolation begins after the march. Karen's life changed rapidly, and not in the way she wanted. When Karen walked into her favorite grocery store, the quiet conversation stopped. People looked away or coldly threw her as if she didn't exist. The owner of the coffee shop Karen frequented, Mr. Martin, no longer even greeted her. Karen found herself alone in a community she once thought she belonged to. One day she tried to attend a meeting of the Fairview Women's Club she used to belong to, but when Karen walked in, no one gave way. Chairs slid back, eyes lowered, small talk continued as if she were not there. The isolation didn't just come from strangers, it came from people who had once called her friend. Back home, Karen slammed the door and leaned against the wall, a heavy feeling pressing down on her chest. Why are people treating me like this? I didn't do anything wrong, she thought to herself. But deep down, Karen knew why. Chapter 7. An unexpected lesson. A week later, Fairview held Family Day at the park, an annual event that Karen had been so eager to attend. This time she stood quietly on the sidelines, uninvited, uncalled for. Karen turned to leave when she saw a strange sight. Malik and his black friends were playing soccer with white kids. Latinos, Asian kids laughing, sharing completely indiscriminate. An older woman, Mrs. Eileen Johnson, who had been a school teacher in town, came up to stand next to Karen. That's what we've been fighting for all these years, Karen. Mrs. Eileen said, her eyes distant. A new generation doesn't look at skin color. It looks at friendship. Karen bit her lip, choking on her words. Mrs. Eileen turned to her, her voice warm but not lacking in severity. We have two choices in life, build bridges or build walls. You chose walls, but bridges are more beautiful, you know. Karen didn't answer, but inside something began to crack, a stubbornness, an arrogant pride that she had held on to for so long. Chapter 8. When self-esteem falls. That night, Karen sat alone by the window looking out at the quiet neighborhood. She remembered what her mother had told her. It only takes one act of kindness to change a heart. Karen had forgotten that long ago, too long. The pressure of public opinion, the judgmental eyes, the cold silence of the community, all of it condensed into a tsunami that crushed the pride in her heart. For the first time in many years, Karen cried. Not because others hated her, but because she had turned herself into such a person. A doorbell rang, pulling Karen from her thoughts. Hesitating for a moment, she opened the door. In front of her was Alicia Carter, the mother who had protected the children that day. Alicia held out a piece of paper. We're holding a community meeting next week. You can come if you want to listen. Karen took the paper, feeling like she was holding a life-changing opportunity in her hands. Chapter 9. The beginning of atonement. On the day of the meeting, Karen wore a simple outfit, no longer the expensive dress or the shiny high heels. She walked into the hall, her heart pounding. Hundreds of people were there. No one clapped, no one cheered, but no one chased her out. Karen took a deep breath and stepped up to the microphone. The room was dead silent. She saw Malik, Alicia, Marcus, and the other children. Karen's voice trembled. I was wrong. I had no reason to treat you like that. No reason at all. She paused, swallowing the tears that were welling up. I carried prejudices that I should never have. I hurt innocent children. I'm sorry. Karen bowed her head longer than she had ever bowed in her life. Silence fell. Then from the front row, Malik stepped forward. The little boy who had been kicked out of the playground held out his hand. Karen looked at the little hand, hesitated, then took it. The whole room burst into applause, not for the ease of forgiveness, but for the courage to admit mistakes. Chapter 10. A new beginning. From that day on, Karen changed. She participated in reading programs for children in Maplewood Park, regardless of race or background. She attended workshops on anti-bias. More importantly, she learned to listen, not to respond, but to truly understand. One time at a reading, Karen sat next to Malik reading The Colors of Us. Malik looked up and asked, "Do you still think we're different now?" Karen smiled, tears welling up in her eyes. "My dear," she said, "you taught me that all colors are beautiful. Thank you." Karen's story from judge to advocate inspired everyone in Fairview. From then on, Maplewood Park became more than just a place to play. It became a symbol, a place where anyone of any color could be themselves. Part 2, Chapter 11. A Heavy Road to Redemption. Karen thought that apologizing at the community meeting would be the hardest part. It wasn't. The real challenge was the silence that came after, the slow, cautious way people still looked at her, the way children instinctively clung to their parents when she walked by, even if she smiled, the way she overheard whispers, "That's her, the woman who chased the kids out of the park." Karen knew she deserved it. She had spent decades building walls without realizing it. One apology, however, heartfelt, wasn't going to tear them down overnight. Determined not to retreat into her old bitterness, Karen signed up for volunteer work at the local youth center, the very place where Alicia Carter often helped tutor underprivileged kids. At first, no one was excited about her being there. Some parents even questioned the decision. But the center's director, Mr. Robinson, a stern yet fair man in his 60s, gave Karen a simple warning. "You're here to serve, not to be served. Keep showing up. Keep listening. Respect will be earned, not handed." Karen nodded. This time she was ready to do the work. Chapter 12. Small Steps. Heavy Steps. The first few weeks were humbling. Karen helped set up chairs, hand out snacks, clean art supplies. Nobody asked her opinion. Nobody invited her into conversations. It hurt, but it also healed. She wasn't there to lead. She wasn't there to correct or supervise. She was there to learn. One afternoon, she found herself sitting across from Malik at the art table. He was coloring a picture of a giant rainbow stretching over a playground. Karen hesitantly said, "That's beautiful." Malik looked up, cautious at first. "Thanks," he mumbled. "You like drawing?" Karen asked, her voice gentle. Malik shrugged. "Yeah, my mom says colors make the world better." Karen smiled, feeling a lump in her throat. "She's right," she whispered. It was only a 5-second conversation, but for Karen it was everything, a sliver of trust gifted carefully like a fragile glass ornament. Chapter 13. Public Scrutiny. Meanwhile, the internet hadn't forgotten. A local news outlet ran a story titled, "From Infamy to Redemption," questioning whether Karen's efforts were genuine or just a public relations move. Comment sections were brutal. Some people mocked her attempts to volunteer. Others argued she deserved no forgiveness at all. Karen read every word, not because she was masochistic, but because she needed to understand the depth of the pain she had caused. There were nights Karen sat alone in her living room, the glow of her laptop screen illuminating tears she didn't even try to hide. Still, she got up the next morning. Still, she went back to the youth center. Still, she cleaned paintbrushes and picked up trash and smiled when kids ignored her. It wasn't about her anymore. It was about building something better, one silent, painful, humble step at a time. Chapter 14. A Chance to Do Right. One Saturday, a big event was scheduled at Maplewood Park Unity Day, a celebration of diversity and inclusion, organized by Alicia Marcus and a coalition of community leaders. Karen showed up early to help set up tents and tables. She stayed in the background, not expecting recognition, as she adjusted a banner that read, "All colors, welcome." Alicia approached her. "Hey," Alicia said, arms crossed, voice unreadable. Karen froze, heart thundering. "I heard you've been helping at the youth center," Alicia continued. Karen nodded, afraid to say too much. Alicia sighed. "It doesn't erase what happened, but showing up matters." For the first time in months, Karen felt something loosen inside her chest, a small, cautious warmth. During the event, as kids played and families mingled, Karen stayed busy handing out water bottles, refilling snack tables, picking up stray trash. She didn't need a spotlight. She didn't need praise. She needed only to be useful. Chapter 15, An Unexpected Invitation. As the sun began to set over Maplewood Park, the organizers gathered to announce the closing remarks. To Karen's shock, Alicia called her name. At first, Karen thought she misheard. But Alicia was smiling, not wide, not warm, but genuine. Karen hesitated, then walked toward the small stage, every eye in the crowd watching her. Alicia handed her the microphone. Karen, Alicia said into her own mic, has been part of this community longer than most of us. And recently, she's shown us that change is possible if you choose it. The crowd was silent, watching. Karen's hands trembled slightly. She cleared her throat. I don't deserve applause, she began, voice steady but thick with emotion. I don't deserve forgiveness, not yet, maybe not ever. But what I do deserve is the chance to do better. And if you'll let me, I promise to keep trying. There was no roaring cheer, no standing ovation, but there were nods. Tears, a few claps, cautious but real, and that was enough. Karen stepped down feeling lighter than she had in years. Part 3. Chapter 16. Trouble at the Park. 2 months after Unity Day, life in Fairview seemed to settle into a gentler rhythm. Karen continued to volunteer at the youth center in the park, blending into the background, offering her help quietly. But real change, Karen learned, wasn't about sunny afternoons and easy victories. It was tested in storms. One afternoon, Karen was restocking bottled water at the playground when she heard shouting. At first, she thought it was kids playing rough. But then she saw it, a tall, heavy-set man yelling at Malik and 2 of his friends near the swings. Go back to where you came from, the man bellowed. Karen froze, her heart pounding. The children looked terrified, inching backward. A few parents nearby turned to watch but hesitated, uncertain how to intervene. The man advanced a step closer, jabbing a finger in Malik's face. Karen didn't think. She moved. Hey! She barked louder than she had ever spoken in public. Leave them alone! The man whirled toward her, scowling. And who the hell are you? He sneered. Karen stood her ground. Someone who's not going to let you bully kids. For a split second, the man seemed ready to explode. But seeing the crowd starting to gather, phones raised, he grunted and stomped away. Karen rushed to the boys kneeling down to their level. Are you okay? She asked, voice trembling. Malik nodded wide-eyed, but it was Malik who reached for her hand this time. Chapter 17, Facing the Mirror. Again. Later that evening, Karen sat on her porch, replaying the moment over and over. The old Karen, the one from before the park incident, would have justified the man's anger, would have found excuses, but today she felt nothing but shame on his behalf. That could have been me, she realized. It had been me. Tears filled her eyes. She understood now. Change wasn't just about apologizing once. It was 1,000 choices every day, especially when no one was watching. Across the street, Alicia waved from her driveway. Karen waved back, genuinely smiling for the first time in what felt like forever. Chapter 18, Old Ghosts, New Wounds. But not everyone was ready to believe in Karen's redemption. At the next town hall meeting, a woman named Stephanie, someone Karen had known for years, stood up and spoke. I find it hard to believe someone can change that fast. Stephanie said, her voice sharp. Some things run too deep. There were murmurs of agreement from a few others. Karen felt their stares like needles under her skin. Part of her wanted to storm out, slam the door, declare she didn't need their approval. But she stayed seated. When the moderator asked if Karen wanted to respond, she rose slowly. I don't blame you for doubting me, Karen said, voice steady. I doubted myself too, but I'm not here to demand forgiveness. I'm here to earn it. Stephanie crossed her arms, unimpressed. Karen didn't flinch. She wasn't speaking for Stephanie. She was speaking for the kids in the park, for Alicia, for herself, and deep down she knew real change wasn't about convincing others. It was about never giving up. Chapter 19. A Night of Fire. 2 weeks later, tragedy struck. Late one night, a fire broke out at the community youth center. By the time firefighters arrived, most of the building was engulfed in flames. Karen heard the sirens from her house and rushed over in her slippers, heart hammering. The fire captain, a burly black man named Captain Ellis, was directing efforts to contain the blaze. Alicia and dozens of parents gathered, tears in their eyes. Karen felt the weight of loss crashing over the crowd. The art supplies, the reading room, the safe place they had built together gone in minutes, and then whispers began. Someone had seen a man throwing something through a window earlier that night. Someone who looked a lot like the angry man from the park confrontation. Hate hadn't died in Fairview. It had only been hiding. As Karen watched the smoke rise into the night sky, she realized something else. This wasn't the end of the fight, it was only the beginning. Chapter 20. Rebuilding What Matters. The next morning, Karen showed up at the charred remains of the youth center broom, gloves, trash bags in hand. So did Alicia, so did Marcus, so did Malik, wearing a Future Leader t-shirt stained with soot. And slowly, dozens more arrived. Parents, teenagers, grandparents, white, black, Latino, Asian, side by side. No speeches, no announcements, just hands working together, clearing debris, saving what little could be saved. Karen worked until her arms ached and her knees gave out. But for once, she didn't feel tired. She felt alive. That afternoon, standing amid the ashes, Alicia approached Karen. Dust streaked on her face. "You're not the same woman you were," Alicia said simply. Karen shook her head. "I hope not." They stood there a moment longer, not needing words. In the weeks that followed, donations poured in. Local businesses offered materials, construction crews volunteered hours, the town council pledged matching funds. But more important than money, more important than walls, was what they built in spirit. A community where Malik and his friends could laugh without fear. A town that didn't just talk about inclusion, but lived it. And in the heart of it all, quietly, humbly, was Karen. Part 4. Chapter 21. A Community Reborn. 6 months after the fire, a brand new building stood where the old youth center had been. It wasn't just a copy of the old one. It was better, brighter, larger, with murals painted by the children themselves. One wall featured a giant rainbow spanning children of all races, holding hands, a tribute to resilience, unity, and hope. Karen stood at the back of the crowd during the opening ceremony, not expecting to be recognized. But as Alicia took the microphone, she scanned the audience and smiled when her eyes landed on Karen. "I want to thank everyone who made today possible." Alicia said, "Some names you know, some you don't, but every hand, every heart mattered." She paused. "And there's someone here today who showed us all that real change is messy, painful, and real." Karen felt hundreds of eyes turn toward her. Alicia gestured. "Karen, would you join me up here?" Karen hesitated, then moved forward, her steps slow but steady. As she climbed the stage, people began to clap. Not mockingly, not reluctantly, but warmly. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Karen felt what real belonging tasted like. Chapter 22. Words she never thought she'd hear. Standing beside Alicia, microphone in hand, Karen took a deep breath. "I don't know what to say," she began, her voice thick with emotion. "Except, thank you for letting me keep trying." The crowd was silent, hanging on to her words. "I spent too long of my life thinking I knew everything, thinking my way was the only way. But kids like Malik," she smiled at the boy sitting cross-legged near the front, "taught me that sometimes the best thing you can do is listen, really listen." There was a low murmur of agreement among the parents and children. Karen continued, "I can't erase the mistakes I've made, but every day I wake up, I promise myself today I will build bridges, not walls." As she stepped back from the microphone, Malik ran up to her, and to everyone's surprise, threw his arms around her. A wave of emotion swept the crowd. Some parents wiped tears. Even tough old Mr. Robinson dabbed at his eyes. Karen hugged Malik back, her heart breaking open in the best way possible. Chapter 23. A Letter from the Past. That evening, as the festivities wound down, Alicia handed Karen a small envelope. "It came for you at the youth center," Alicia said, smiling. Curious, Karen opened it carefully. Inside was a handwritten letter. "Dear Karen, I watched what you did these past months. I wasn't sure you could change. I was wrong. My granddaughter is black. She asked me why that lady at the park was so mean. I didn't know how to answer her. Now, thanks to you, I can say people can learn. People can choose better. Thank you for choosing better. Eileen Johnson." Karen clutched the letter to her chest. Tears spilled down her cheeks, but she didn't wipe them away. They were tears she had earned. Chapter 24. Ripples Beyond. Fairview news of Fairview's transformation spread beyond their small town. A local news station did a follow-up story titled, "The Power of Apology: How One Woman's Change Sparked a Movement." Karen was invited reluctantly to appear on a community panel about combating racial bias. She sat alongside Alicia Captain Ellis and Mr. Robinson. During the panel, the moderator asked Karen, "If you could go back in time, what would you tell your old self?" Karen didn't hesitate. "I would say you are not the judge of who belongs and who doesn't. Love belongs. Kindness belongs. That's all you ever needed to know." There was a standing ovation. But Karen didn't smile for the cameras. She smiled because, for the first time, she knew it was true. Chapter 25. A Promise for Tomorrow. As spring arrived, the park that had once been the site of anger and tears bloomed with wildflowers and laughter. Karen often visited, sitting quietly on a bench. She helped to sponsor a bench with a small plaque that read, "For every child, every laugh, every color, always welcome." Sometimes Malik would wave at her from the swings. Sometimes Alicia would sit beside her with a cup of coffee. And sometimes, the best times, Karen would simply watch the children run, unburdened by fear or judgment, and feel her heart swell. She knew she couldn't undo the past. She knew she wasn't perfect. But every day she made the same quiet vow. "Today I will be better than yesterday." And in a world so often fractured by division, that simple promise was a powerful, beautiful thing. Karen smiled, leaning back against the bench as the golden sunlight spilled over the park. The work would never be finished, but neither was hope, and that she realized was enough. Part 5. Chapter 26. 1 year later, the sun rose over Fairview in a blaze of gold. It had been a full year since that awful afternoon at Maplewood Park, the day Karen had chased Malik and his friends away. The day everything changed, and today, the town buzzed with excitement. Fairview had been nominated for the State Award for Community Excellence, a huge honor, recognizing towns that showed extraordinary efforts in inclusion, diversity, and healing. As Karen sipped her morning coffee on her porch, she thought about how far they had come, how far she had come. It wasn't just about an award, it was about what it represented. A second chance, not just for her, but for everyone. Chapter 27. Karen the Mentor. After months of hard work and humility, Karen had found a new role she never expected: mentor. At the youth center, she helped train new volunteers, young and old, teaching them, not from a place of authority, but from a place of experience and humility. Her first rule was simple: check your judgments at the door. Kids loved her now, not because she was perfect, but because she treated them with real, unwavering respect. One afternoon, a shy girl named Zoe, only 7 years old, approached Karen after an art class. "Can I sit with you?" Zoe asked, clutching a crayon drawing to her chest. Karen smiled warmly. "Of course, sweetheart, show me what you made." It was a picture of the park kids of every race playing together under a bright sun. "That's beautiful," Karen whispered, her heart swelling. Zoe beamed. And in that tiny moment, Karen felt more fulfilled than any praise or title could ever offer. Chapter 28. A New Test. But even in a healing town, challenges never truly disappeared. One crisp autumn afternoon, while setting up for the youth center's fall festival, Karen overheard two teenagers near the parking lot laughing and making crude jokes, mocking Malik and some of the Latino kids. The laughter was cruel, sharp-edged. Old Karen might have ignored it, or worse, excused it. But the Karen of today didn't hesitate. She marched over, standing tall despite the nervous flutter in her chest. "Hey," she said, voice firm but calm. "That's not how we treat each other around here." The boys, startled, muttered excuses and tried to walk away. Karen blocked their path gently but firmly. "You have two choices," she said. "You can leave, or you can stay and be part of something better. Up to you." The boys looked at each other, embarrassed. After a long pause, they apologized, clumsy and awkward. But it was a start. Karen watched them shuffle off toward the games tent, a small smile tugging at her lips. It wasn't about perfection, it was about planting seeds, even if they took a long time to bloom. Chapter 29. Award Night. The night of the state awards arrived. Hundreds gathered in the grand hall of the capital city. Banners hung high, music played softly. Laughter and nervous energy filled the room. Fairview's delegation, Alicia Marcus, Captain Ellis Malik's family, and yes, Karen sat together at a large round table near the stage. When the announcer finally called Fairview's name as the winner, the entire table erupted in cheers. As Alicia and Marcus made their way to the stage to accept the award, they paused and beckoned Karen to join them. Karen froze. "Me, she thought I don't deserve," but Alicia's smile was unwavering. So Karen rose, her legs trembling, and walked alongside them. As the award was presented, Marcus spoke into the microphone. "Fairview isn't perfect, but we learned that when you build bridges instead of walls, when you choose hope over fear, you can create something beautiful. And sometimes the greatest redemption stories start with the hardest lessons." The room roared with applause. Karen blinked back tears. Not for herself, but for everything and everyone this moment represented. Chapter 30. Home later that night after the celebrations, Karen found herself standing alone outside the youth center. The stars glittered overhead, the town sleeping quietly beneath them. She ran her hand over the new plaque by the entrance, in honor of every child's right to belong. Footsteps approached. It was Malik, now taller, more confident than a year ago. "You okay, Miss Karen?" he asked, grinning. Karen chuckled softly. "Yeah, kiddo, more than okay." He sat down beside her on the steps. "You know," Malik said thoughtfully, "some people said you were bad, but you're not." Karen turned to him, emotion thick in her chest. "I was bad," she admitted, "but people can change if they want it bad enough." Malik nodded, wise beyond his years. "I'm glad you changed, 'cause now I got another grown-up who's got my back." Karen smiled, tears slipping down her cheeks. "You'll always have my back," she promised. The two sat there under the stars, an old woman and a young boy, bound not by blood but by something deeper. Understanding, forgiveness. Hope Fairview wasn't perfect. Karen wasn't perfect. But sometimes the most imperfect stories made the most beautiful endings. And Karen knew deep in her soul that this was not an ending at all. It was only the beginning, the end.